Hey there. I'm John Hayes, and thanks for joining us for this episode of the Founders Trust podcast. You can't sell your product or service unless you get it in front of the right people. Even if you're the most technical founder out there, you still need to understand how to tee up your solution for your target customers. So today, we're discussing how founders can develop their marketing skills without spending a lot of time or money. I spoke with Keith Kriegler, the founder of Savvyeur, a Chicago-based startup helping entrepreneurs apply effective marketing campaigns to achieve their business goals through online courses, coaching sessions, and done-for-you execution services. Keith and I discuss why it's important for founders to build a foundational understanding of marketing, the necessary alignment between strategy and tactics, and some areas of marketing that serve as good starting points for entrepreneurs to begin their marketing education. Keith brings more than 20 years of experience in the field and is honestly just such a terrific mentor to first time founders like myself. He's been a tremendous resource in my personal journey with Market Trust, and I'm so excited to be able to share his thoughts with you today. And stick around until the end of the episode for a discount code to take 20% off the purchase of a course on the Savvyeur platform. So let's jump right in. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Founders Trust podcast. I'm John Hayes, and I'm very honored to be joined by someone I consider a great friend and a mentor, Keith Kriegler from Savvyeur. Keith, it's so awesome to have you on today. How are you doing? And thanks for joining us.
It's great to see you, John, and thanks very much for having me on. We've known each other going on about 2 years now, and it just keeps getting better and better. So
absolutely.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, anytime. I was so excited when you agreed to come on the show with us. It's been I honestly, a lot of my entrepreneurial experience with Market Trust and other things has been very closely attached to yours with Savvyeurs. So
Right.
I feel like this experience of talking about different aspects of a founder's journey, particularly in learning, marketing or sharing tips and tricks on marketing for early stage founders, kind of fits our relationship perfectly because that's what we've been talking about for almost 2 years now. So very excited to have you on and really looking forward to sharing this information with our guests today. So Keith, tell us a little bit more about your journey into the world of entrepreneurship and what has that path looked like that's led you to where you are today in founding and building Savvyeur?
To keep the story brief, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've been in sales and marketing my entire career. I was a partner in an agency for a number of years, and then I was consulting, worked at a couple different marketing firms. And one of the things that I kept seeing was, especially recently, is entrepreneurs really struggle with marketing. And it's a challenge. It's one word, John, that means so many things to different people, right? Is it social media? Is it a Facebook ad? Is it digital? Is it e-commerce? What the heck is it? And there's a lot of frustration behind it. And call me crazy, but I happen to love marketing. And the reason that I'm passionate about it is because it combines two disciplines at a very high level. The first is really the strategic part of it, really thinking through logistically how to get to where you want to get to. And then the other part is the creative process, right? The thinking, the ideas, the cleverness behind a campaign, et cetera. So in talking with a number of different entrepreneurs, and we both know different entrepreneurial communities, I had this idea to develop Savvyeur as a way and a modular platform that could serve entrepreneurs through three different areas. And it's knowledge, coaching, and marketing services. And the whole idea and the idea behind the meaning behind it being modular is that it's interactive. So you could pick and choose what you need because every entrepreneur's needs are different. The most important thing that we want to deliver from the Savvyeur standpoint is providing you with the information and the resources so you can make an informed decision about your business and achieve desired outcomes.
And that's honestly, I remember when you first walked me through the premise and we were talking about what's kind of that core need, and it just resonated so strongly. And that's in a lot of ways, I think, due to the fact that when you say an entrepreneur, that could be anyone with a very diverse background, right? It's someone who could be more technical in nature, someone who could come from a business side, someone who could be from a marketing agency, a student. It could be really anyone. And so when you think about what the needs of that person are in terms of getting them to a place where they're feeling comfortable with their not only marketing knowledge, but ability to develop marketing strategy, translate that into tactics, or at least have an understanding of how someone on their team or an outsourced professional could handle that for them. That's really something that resonated with me, because those types of conversations with different entrepreneurs who feel uncomfortable about it, feel like it's holding them back from their business, are really they're really poignant, because you feel the frustration and you feel how people are overwhelmed by the inability to get their product or service in front of the right people. So absolutely clear to me on the problem and who's really feeling it. Have you guys been able to really identify if there are certain entrepreneurs who are resonating perhaps a little bit more with this than others at such an early stage? I mean, the need is there for a lot of different folks, but have you focused on a particular entrepreneur set?
We have. So our focus is around entrepreneurs as well as small business owners. And the reason for that niche and that market, and it's a big market, is because a marketing agency becomes out of reach for them. They're very expensive. There's a lot of overhead. The agencies are used to dealing with big brands and big budgets and all sorts of things. And it's just not an approachable model, for an entrepreneur, somebody with a business idea. And so to answer your question, yes, we've identified our market, and we actually just completed a series of focus groups. And again, we're a new company. So when I say focus groups, we didn't throw, thousands of dollars against, doing focus groups. What we did was we recruited a number of different people, about 15 people in total. And we talked to them about what their pains were, what some of the challenges were. And some of the bigger areas were, and again, everybody was different, right? You have 15 people, so you're going to get 15 different answers. The commonalities among them were a lot of frustration. Where do I begin? I need leads. How do I get more leads? When I get the leads, what do I tell them? What's a drip campaign? How does all that tie in together? How does my CRM work into that equation? That's one component. The other component is really the educational piece. So some people want to just say, here, you know what, I know I need social media. Can you just please do it and advise me accordingly? And that's why we implemented the coaching aspect of Savvyeur. But other people want to be informed. They want to really understand it's their business, it's their passion, right? So before they spend money, they'd rather spend a little bit of money, on a course or a coaching session to educate themselves about the topic. You take e-commerce as an example. That is a very broad topic today, and it's a very important topic for so many businesses because of what's happened, and the pandemic is only fueling people's buying behaviors. So everybody's thinking, how do I get my product online? How do I deliver it? How do I create a great consumer experience with it? How do I engage that customer once they buy, the first time? So it continues to go on and on. And again, the platform from a Savvyeur standpoint, to go back to answer your question, it's really working with these 15 people initially to address those pain points with a very practical solution that they can use however much or however little they need.
And that's honestly, I think, a big piece of where Savvyeur's value prop comes into play as someone who's viewing it externally, right? Because a question that I've had, and we've tried to solve this with Market Trust as well, is why is it so difficult for founders or really business people in general, particularly small business owners, to develop a foundational understanding of marketing if it's not already in their background, right? In theory, someone could go get an MBA, but that's a little pricey. And otherwise they could, watch a YouTube video or something, but it just feels like an incomplete solution. So where is it that you really feel that Savvyeur fits in the market and kind of alleviates some of those difficulties that people are having with trying to piece apart these different resources to figure out how to do this stuff?
John, I'm smiling because this came up not only in the focus groups, but we were working with a coaching client the other day. And here's the main reason. People will do a Google search on YouTube, and there's some great resources out there. And my first suggestion is definitely educate yourself. Learn about the different marketing discipline, whatever it might be that you need. Okay. The problem is when you're done with that, You look at yourself and say, how does this apply to my business? Where do I start? Honest to God, that is the first question. They're like, great, I've got all this information. There's 5 different CRM platforms. There's all this email. Who's going to write the copy? What is a content strategy? How do I make it right for my business? And I'll give you a real example in addition to the coaching client, but I was working with a woman who works for a very reputable real estate company, and she's a real estate agent. And on there, they have a dashboard, right? And they have, different educational materials. And one is around social media. And they list Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, etc. And they go down the list, right? She said, Keith, I am so confused. I have no idea what my brand message is. My niche is in Lincoln Park, and I know this, and this is my area of specialty. How do I put that together? How do I upload my picture? How often do I change my content? And that's really what Savvyeur does, is we take that information and make it very practical and applicable to your business. And again, everybody's different. So when I use the word interactive and modular, that's exactly why we designed it the way we did. John, you may want to come in and take a course, and you're good on do it yourself, and I'll elaborate on that in just a second. But somebody else may say, hey, I want to educate myself on this, but then I'd like you to help me with it. And so we have a platform called Do It With Me. The third piece is Do It For Me. And Do It For Me is you could just hire us to do your marketing services. So like one client we're working with right now, we're doing their social media campaign. We're doing their planning, their strategy, and we tie it in with consultation so they understand why we're advising and recommending what we're doing. And we're doing it in a very logical and strategic manner so it makes sense. So going back, not to continue and belabor this, but it's an important point. One of the frustrations that entrepreneurs have, and you and I talked a little bit about this early on, is they will spend money on things like a logo design or a website design, but it won't have all the bells and whistles that they need, or it won't have the content, or they'll do packaging. This is a woman I consulted with about a year ago. She has a great product, okay, and it's a Better For You brand. Her packaging had so many messages on it, it was too cluttered. So you didn't know what to look at first, and what happens with the consumer is you tune it out. Like RX Bar did a great job of illustrating that with the simple ingredients in a very clean package. And that's a great example. You think about like a Red Bull brand, right? Red Bull, it's an energy, it gives you wings, you're going to fly, you're going to have, etc. A lot of entrepreneurs say, oh, I need to have this message, and that's important. And we're different than this, and throw it all in there, whether it's an email or it's package design. And so what we work with them to do is take a very logical and strategic approach to helping them craft their marketing message or their e-commerce site or whatever it might be, so it gets them the results that they're looking for.
Well, and I think that's a really key piece, because it's so frustrating as a founder, and not just with marketing, with anything, but to get 75 or 80% of the way there, but then not get the results because the last 15, 20, 25% is missing, right? It's you've gotten a lot of the foundational pieces done, but you're not at that level to really take it to an execution step where you're getting the results you need. And ultimately, smaller organizations, especially early stage startups, can't afford that kind of missed opportunity, right? Or waste of resources. And I think, you touched on kind of the 3 different approaches: the do it myself, do it with me, do it for me. That makes a ton of sense to me, and I think is a tremendous business model that a lot of startups should consider, because you're approaching your target client at where they are, right? And some of that perhaps is the novelty of focusing as a target market on smaller business owners or as entrepreneurs, and that you encompass a little bit wider range of experience levels, expertise, comfort, but by providing that kind of flexible approach, you're able to meet each customer where they're at in their kind of customer journey or comfort level, which I think is a brilliant approach. When it comes to the execution side of things, have you seen from kind of demand through the Savvyeur platform, are there certain areas where founders are really struggling with marketing? You touch on things like logo design or copy or automation. Have you seen that there are certain areas that really keep coming up as maybe problem areas that a lot of founders are struggling with?
It's an excellent question, and I do just want to go back to address what you said earlier, John. The thing with Savvyeur, and I encourage everybody just to check it out. There's some free conversations, there's free content, you can download a business growth map, etc. You can enter Savvyeur at any point in your business. It's really a la carte. It's up to you as to whatever you need. And then to answer your question so far as where do they really struggle? Honestly, it's with strategy. And the reason why I say that is because they'll typically say, I want to sell, do an e-commerce. Everybody hears about the pandemic, et cetera. Let me sell online. I got to move online. But they don't take the time to really think about what that means. And there's a lot that goes into it. And if you just take a little bit of time and develop a roadmap, right? Here's my product, here's the customer, here's where we want to get to, and start to plan it out, you can really be very, save yourself a lot of time and frustration and of course money, because you're taking a very logical approach. And the one thing that I will say about the team at Savvyeur, and John, quite a few of the people that I'm working with, is we're business people and we're marketers. And we've touched so many different industries. Our whole premise is that your business, right? Whoever the entrepreneur is, whether it's a better for you product or it's a consumer packaged good, or could be the next SaaS platform, it could be an app, whatever it might be. We've touched so many different industries. Your business. What we know how to do is how to market and promote it so you can be successful.
Well, and ultimately, no one knows this better than the founder, right? Or the executive team. And I think that's one area. It's really important you point this out, I think, Keith, because a lot of times when founders are uncomfortable with a particular area, they think, okay, I'm going to outsource that, or I'm not going to spend time on it, or I'm going to procrastinate on it, right? Even if subconsciously. But marketing is one of those areas, at least in my mind, and I'm sure you feel the same way, that it's not something you can afford to push off to the side or simply outsource. And you can outsource the execution, but you talk about the strategy piece, and you really have to understand, how does our execution and our set of tactics align with what we're trying to do, right? And align with the target customer we're trying to meet, and how the core value proposition of our business solves the need for that customer. And so I in my mind, that's one of the biggest things about Savvyeur, is that because you do offer the courses as a way of a founder to kind of invest in their own marketing knowledge, it gives them the ability to, really understand things at a strategic and more detailed level. And I guess, can you speak to maybe how the courses really encourage that, and encourage, kind of a self-investment mentality for founders, rather than just kind of another thing that's on their plate, and whether it kind of takes that overwhelming feeling out of the equation for them?
Yeah, of course. So there's a couple things that come to mind. First, and you've done a fabulous job with your course, so thank you, and the conversation as well. And I encourage everybody to check it out. So there's two pieces with the content as it relates to the courses. There's what we call a Savvyeur conversation, and that entails a dialogue, either two people or one person really talking about a challenge that they faced and how they overcame it. And the whole idea behind that challenge is really, entrepreneurs want to learn from entrepreneurs, right? We want to learn from each other. We don't want to make the same mistakes as the other people. I'm an entrepreneur myself. God knows I've made enough mistakes.
Part of the journey.
We all have, right? I mean, you're constantly learning, and the idea behind the conversations is to take away some of that pain, if you will, but also familiarity. And we're building a community with Savvyeur, and that's an important component that I'll get to in a second. The other piece with the courses are that where they're different is each one has a worksheet. And when you download the worksheet, you're filling out the worksheet based upon your business goals. It's not a generic worksheet that you could get off of, not knocking YouTube, but a YouTube video or something. It's really, we guide you through it. And John, in your course, you walk people through the process. Here's what you need to do. Here's how to think about it from your business point of view and your perspective. And the last really important part is, and this has come up actually a few times, you have sources out there like LinkedIn and Udemy, which are great. Okay, I'm not They're very credible sources. However, they have a ton of courses. Our focus is really around marketing and how to tie marketing together to make it work for the customer. Because when you go into some of those sites and it's 1,500 courses, again, you don't even know where to start. It's anything from cooking to SEO to, knitting, whatever it might be. Our whole focus is really around helping the entrepreneur and business owner grow their business by taking a very logical and strategic approach.
Well, and I can say that, I know others can as well, because I've taken courses on Udemy or Coursera, and it is overwhelming. You go, you search for maybe what you think you need. There's 20 options, 50 options for anything from SEO to how to write emails, right? And sometimes it's nice to have choice in some ways, but a lot of times it gets back to the old adage of the paradox of choice, right? And none of them feel particularly compelling. And certainly the curation aspect of Savvyeurs content was, what has really attracted me to it. And made it such an appealing opportunity when you approached me about doing a course, because I could see how it was differentiated from other platforms.
Right. And so one of the things that I just wanted to, and not to add to what you're saying, John, is the whole thing when you go to those sites is, what do you do with that information once you're done? Who can I talk to? Who can I say, okay, great, I've got this information. How do I apply it to my business? Here's my challenge. Here's my struggle. Let me just tell you, I love being on this podcast because you're asking me about my business. Usually I'm not the one talking about my business. And I have a great team that I work with, and I'm very fortunate that there's such a talented group of people. They really guide me, so far as a Savvyeur standpoint. I mean, we're a new company. We're starting to grow. We're gaining traction. We've got good momentum going. But I need guidance. And the team that I work with, they steer me in the right direction, with what we're going to be doing. And so it's very, very helpful. It's really important. And so that advisory role, I guess is what I would say, is how we want to think of ourselves. Think of Savvyeur as your marketing arm. You could use us as little or as much as you need, but we're here to support you in helping make your dream a reality.
Well, now flexibility is certainly very appealing for startups, right? Because it meets them where they're at, whether they're, just a small team, whether they're growing, whether they've received seed funding and need to scale. I think that's one of the aspects that's really special about Savvyeur.
Thank you,
Keith. Perhaps I'm a bit biased because you asked me even, but how do you go about curating the content, the professionals who are conducting the courses in conversations, and how is that aligned with kind of providing this very community or curated feel towards Savvyeurs content overall to serve your customers?
We talk to our customers all the time, in a lot of different ways. I've gone to a lot of entrepreneurial groups. Our team has put together a content calendar. We talk to third parties about what they're seeing in the marketplace. We read a lot, but we really understand what customers are looking for. And right now, the biggest topics are around e-commerce. It's around social media. It's around brand strategy. Shopper marketing is a big component because, again, where people are trying to get distribution in retail, how do I balance that out with online sales? How do you make that work? Lead generation is another one. So to answer your question directly, John, it's really getting feedback from the customers and then putting together a content calendar that addresses that. And when I mean content calendar, it's the conversations and the courses that pair up, that's a great word, that pair up well with marketing services. So, again, you may want to listen to a conversation and say, I have enough information. Great, go ahead and handle this aspect for me. Reputation management is another thing. A lot of people are coming up with that. How do I protect my brand? What does that mean? Absolutely. And so we can handle that for them. They don't necessarily have the time for it. Others just want us to be an advisor to them. So simply, it's really getting information back from our customers. And the one thing that I would say is, for entrepreneurs, you do that and don't just go to friends and family who are going to say, I love your product, you have a great idea. One thing I used to do when I was starting out with Savvyeur, and this is pre-pandemic, is I would, honest to God, go to like Starbucks and I would just see if I could buy people a cup of coffee and bend their ear for like 5-10 minutes. And you would be surprised at how many people were willing to listen to me. And I didn't have the site up, but I had mock-ups of the site. I had an overview. I would get their feedback. I would say, what do you like? What don't you like? What would you like to see? That's how we started to frame up, the business model for Savvyeur, so it really appeals to the customer's needs.
And that you touch on the honest feedback loop, right? Not just the positive sugar-coated feedback loop.
Right.
It does feel good, right? When you got your family and friends and people who support you, understand the mission, right? Providing that encouragement, because every entrepreneur needs that kind of like
Right.
emotional support at some level, but ultimately you can't really move the company forward in a progressive way to make those steps that you need to take unless you're getting the honest feedback, right? And then the
Correct.
constructive feedback and understanding the things that really do need to be fixed as opposed to the things that you just maybe think need to be fixed or want to do with the platform.
Right. And let me just jump in here. So this is one very important thing. And I say this with our team, and I do it myself, and sometimes I'm not as good as I need to be. Listen to hear, don't listen to respond. And what I mean by that is we all love to talk, right? Again, where you get an opportunity, John, tell me about market trust, you'll bend my ear.
Right.
But when you're asking people their feedback and whether they like the product or they don't, or what is it that they do like, or what do they wish it did, all these different variables, you really need to just listen and hear what they're saying and just digest it. Because that constructive feedback, I won't say negative because it's not, it's constructive feedback, helps you make a business model that people will like. Having been in marketing my entire career pretty much, I never create a promotion or a marketing campaign designed for Keith. Never. Because I'm not necessarily the norm. I go and I watch people's behaviors. I look up, different sites, things that I might not, websites that I may not visit. I go into stores that, aren't necessarily in my wheelhouse or places where I would buy product, but you want to observe consumer behavior because that's your customer. I mean, that's how you build a product and a service that appeals to so many people.
That's terrific advice. And I really hope that, listeners and myself take that away and remember that, because I think it's a really careful and difficult balance for founders. Because think about it, on one hand, your job, a lot of ways, when you're a solo founder or whether you're just starting out, is to be an advocate for your team, your product, your solution, right? And so you have to kind of be rah-rah. You have to, be confident in what you're building. And at the same time, you have to balance that with being able to, receive, filter, and digest constructive feedback, right? And so I think, and I've seen this in myself and in other founders I know, that it can be really difficult to kind of flip the switch from, kind of cheerleader, being the public advocate for what you're building. And at the same time, I don't want to say on the back end, but at the same time, while you're doing product development and really growing your company, receiving that constructive feedback and being able to take it and turn it into the steps that you need to take. So it certainly is a difficult balance, right? I think every founder struggles with that in some way, but I think you hit the nail on the head, Keith. Without that, you can't possibly connect with your target customer, right? Because you're understanding yourself or your own, superimposed beliefs onto your product as opposed to what the customer's, really resonating with. So I think that's really feedback, or that's really, constructive advice that I certainly will be taking it myself, taking some notes here. But yeah, I think one part about that feedback, especially when it comes to marketing, is you can get feedback in a lot of different ways, right? There's so many different platforms. People now are saying you should be on, this platform, you should be on TikTok, you should be on Instagram Reels, you should be doing all these different things, right? And the rate of evolution in the marketing space and marketing tech space is so rapid that people get overwhelmed, as we've talked about. And so it's hard to, I think, digest a lot of the feedback when people are saying you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. How do you think about helping founders kind of sort through the noise of all the platforms, all the tools, all the, recommendations people are saying you have to do X, Y, and Z, to really focus on, maybe the 3 or 4 things that move the needle for them on the marketing side?
It's a great question. It's a really good question because everybody likes what's the saying, that the shiny new object, right?
Shiny
Like TikTok,
object. Oh,
the
right.
shiny new object, right? So TikTok is a great example. You read about a couple of years ago it was Instagram. Now it's TikTok. Um, my suggestion, and I do this myself, ask several people who you respect, whether you know them or not, and just get their point of view. But ask them why they're recommending what they're recommending. If they say just throw a video up on TikTok, and do XYZ and you'll make $1 million or you get 1,000 followers or whatever it might be, ask them why they're recommending what they're recommending. Part of that is just not being so reactionary to it, not getting caught up in the moment with it. There isn't a quick solution. It is an evolving process. I could tell you with Savvyeur, our business model is evolving because of the focus group feedback. We've been live for just under a year. So again, we're getting traction, but based upon the consumer, user experience and the feedback, that's why we developed the do it yourself, do it with me, and do it for me. And we wanted to really articulate that. We did not start out with that. So to answer your question simply, ask several people who you trust or who you believe, or get referrals. Not everybody knows everybody, but get referrals, get introductions, but always ask why they're recommending what they're recommending. And if it makes logical sense, then do it. If you feel good about it, you can always get a reference. Definitely look at their work, see if it makes sense to you, and then go forward with it, and just know that it's going to morph and continue to evolve.
Sometimes it is really helpful to hear that outside voice, right? Someone from kind of beyond your network or who's beyond your inner circle of people who are familiar with what you're doing and what you're building. So I think that's great advice, Keith. And kind of along those lines, you mentioned kind of the evolution of Savvyeur and how you're responding in response to the feedback from your focus groups. Are you seeing one or two kind of developing areas of marketing that people are really focusing either on learning about, or you're hearing a lot in terms of this is the next big thing that people should be looking to learn or to do? Has any of that come through your focus group feedback, and how is Savvyeur kind of adjusting to take a look at some of those areas, or how to provide content for those areas, etc.?
I would say the two areas that are really top of mind right now for people are what is a content strategy? And by that, I mean, it's your assets. It's what you see on Instagram. It's what you see on LinkedIn. It's what you see on Facebook. How do I tell my brand story? How do I simplify it? That is really important because of the situation we're in, everything is really digital right now. Whether it's your phone or your computer or whatever it might be. So you really need a solid content strategy that reflects your brand. And then with that is delivering a great experience. And it takes some thinking. I told you the reason why I like marketing is because it's strategic and creative. You need to deliver a great experience to the customer, because if they buy your product at the first go round, you want to make sure they're going to buy it again and cross promote and upsell and get referral programs and bring their friends and family, because that's how you start to grow your business, and it's organically. And I'll give you a great example that I just think did a fabulous job was Dollar Shave Club and like Harry's. They had a brand, they had a persona about them. And they were digital. That's why I'm using them as examples, at the beginning. But they were terrific in the way that they approached their business. It was really good. So
And it's their brand. It always seemed consistent and authentic, right? How it was being presented across things, whether it was a Facebook ad, an email. It always seemed very consistent across platforms, which can be really difficult to do, right? Because inherently, how people are using email versus social media is naturally very different. So that's a great brand that you pointed out to really kind of show an example of that consistency. And it kind of ties again back into the strategy that you mentioned before. How does the overarching strategy apply to the tactics that you're able to execute.
Right, exactly.
Well, Keith, this has been a tremendous episode. I'm going to give it its proper due with the 3-question grand finale. So
okay,
this is the extra fun stuff. But
these are the bonus points, right? I get bonus points for this.
That's right. The extra. So if there's one book or blog or source of information that you'd recommend to founders to have them check out and develop their understanding of marketing in general, and particularly, how to go about building their marketing skills, what would it be? And it can be a certain aspect of the Savvyeur website or content too.
Right. I would say what I do is I read a lot and articles. I personally don't read a lot of books because I'm not a fast reader, and I want to consume a lot of information from different publications. So as a great example, there was an article on Tom Brady and the 12 things that he does to get the track record that he has. And whether you like him or dislike him, he's got an incredible track record, and I'll learn from that guy. But like Inc. magazine does a lot of blurbs, short stories, if you will, that are about emerging entrepreneurs and business owners and new companies that are forming. I read about Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, and they're really good, informative articles. They're people that I aspire to. Mind Valley is a company that has grown exponentially. The founder, Vishen, he's fantastic. There's a guy, Lewis Howes, who I follow on Instagram. He's just built a coaching practice, does a lot of podcasts, very informative guests. So diversify your information is what I would say, because you get nuggets from different people and different sources. So things like Fast Company, Inc. magazine are great resources.
Well, the nice part is they're always putting out content, right? So there's always something new to digest. It never gets stale, that's for sure. So,
Exactly.
Question 2 here. What's one product or company that you're really excited about right now? And you can't say Savvyeur. It has to be something other than Savvyeur.
Can I say Market Trust?
I'm not going to fight you there.
I would say there's 2 companies. One is Apple, and the other is Tesla. And I like them because they're constantly evolving. They're constantly coming out with new and different technologies, meeting customers' needs. I used to follow Starbucks all the time, and unfortunately with the pandemic, they can't be as aggressive as they were at one point, but they are a very progressive company. And look at how they took something like coffee from the Starbucks standpoint and really evolved it into the third destination, right? And that's what Howard Schultz refers Starbucks as. And it just makes all the sense in the world. But people didn't think about it. So when you talk about companies, those would be 2 or 3 that come to mind. Amazon, of course, so far as how they're continually evolving, what they did with Whole Foods and how they're baking that into their overall offering. So very progressive companies.
In a digital world, it certainly seems like you have to evolve faster than ever, right? And you have to stay one step ahead. And every company you mentioned certainly has seemed to do that, right? And they're great lessons for what you can, culture that you can establish early on when it's easier to do when you're small to kind of grow into something larger like that later on. So terrific examples. All right, last question. If our listeners wanted to get in touch with you directly to discuss marketing education, marketing principles, your journey as a founder or Savvyeur, obviously, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Please contact me directly at kkriegler@savvyeur.com. Go to the website, under Grow Savvyeur, email and just say, hey, attention, Keith, and I'll get back to you. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. Whatever's easiest for you. But it would be great. I'd love to hear your listeners' feedback and what they think about the site. And, are we addressing their needs? Maybe there's something we may have overlooked, and they have a different point of view than we do. Like I said, we love to talk to our customers and hear what they're saying and making sure we're staying, in step with what their needs are.
Absolutely. Well, I can attest for Keith. He's very responsive. I'll send him texts or emails at all hours of the day, and I probably keep him up or wake him up in the morning. But he's very responsive, so I can attest that he'll get back to you. But Keith, this has been a tremendous episode here for the Founders Trust podcast. Again, really grateful to have you on today. It's been a great conversation. I think our listeners have got a lot of value out of the different nuggets and wisdom that you've provided here for us today.
Good.
So can't thank you enough for joining us for this episode.
John, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
And if you're interested in learning more about Savvyeur, check it out at savvyeur.com or shoot us an email at founderstrustpodcast@markettrust.io. Thanks again for listening today, and stay tuned for another episode of the Founders Trust podcast. As mentioned during our conversation, Keith generously approached me with the opportunity to create a course for the Savvyeur platform. My course focuses on using data to understand your customer. In this course, we walk through how to use free tools to access your data, understanding what your data is actually telling you, and how to turn your data into actions to improve your business. We're always looking for ways to provide as much value as possible to our listeners, and Savvyeur is generously helping us out with that today. Check out savvyeur.com, that's savvyeur.com/all-courses, and use promo code FOUNDERS20 at checkout for 20% off when you purchase my data course. Offer eligible through March 10th, 2021. So let me know what you think of today's episode. Comment on our social media or send us an email at founderstrustpodcast@markettrust.io. Now go get building.